Hello and happy Thursday, morning or afternoon, depending on where you live, or even evening, depending on where you live, or it might even be Friday where you live. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to chill out for the next hour or so and take your questions about sobriety, whatever the things are that you struggle with, whatever questions you have about how to get sober, how to stay sober, mindset, whatever it is, feel free to type them in the box and we will answer them. We want to show our appreciation for you guys being our subscribers and watching our videos, and hoping that you guys are getting a lot out of it and understanding how to get and stay sober. And if you guys have a success story, let us know in the chat box as well. I know a lot of people who watch our videos are able to stay sober. A lot of people who go through our course are able to stay sober, which is good. It's a good thing, right? So, pretty cool. How you doing today, Terry?
I'm doing all right. Getting ready for a weekend that's not going to be too hot for once.
All right.
So yeah, beautiful day, beautiful. It'll be a beautiful weekend to stay sober.
Absolutely. Every weekend is a good weekend to stay sober, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of, I know you spend a lot of time talking to people face to face in the alcohol community. What are some of the questions that you see often repeated and some of the struggles you see people dealing with?
For people that are able to stay sober, a lot of their problems come from family issues. The anxiety, the stress. A lot of people have other family members that are not sober, that are active alcoholics, and they have to deal with that. That's one of them. Another one is relapse. There's a lot of relapse in alcohol abuse, and that is a big issue, and how to keep from relapsing. And the difficulty in getting back to sobriety when you do relapse, that's another big one. But for you guys out there, let us know what some of your struggles are too. Obviously, we want to hear about your successes and maybe some of the things that are bothering you. Ask us questions. We do have experience, our own personal experience, and then experience with working with other people as well. So let us know what your thoughts are, and welcome.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times people struggle with the cliche answers of sobriety, which drove me nuts. When I was trying to get sober and they were like, easy does it, just chill. Don't sweat the small stuff. Let go and let God. Those help people who've been around for like 30 years and they kind of get it. But for a new person, if you come in and you're struggling with life and you're struggling with alcoholism and you can't stay sober, and someone's like, hey, let go and let God, you're like, okay, well, first of all, do I even believe in a God? Second of all, like, what does that even mean? Like, what am I letting go of? I just let it go? I mean, you don't know what my life's like, which is a big thing. And when we understand that, okay, yeah, your problems can be big issues, but I think the key is to zoom out and understand that every major issue you've gone through in your life, you've made it out of, right? And you look at it and you're like, okay, everything is going to go the way it's going to go. And even though some things seem very difficult and some things seem very hard to get through, you will make it through one way or another. I mean, I don't know what's on the other side of the gate, but you're going to make it through one way or another, and things are going to be the way they are. And when they're not the way they are, you're not going to be here to know it. So, that's kind of how I look at things is, everything I've gotten through, and everything that's going to happen is going to happen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my part in it. What is it I can do? What is it I can change? What can I not change? Certain things in life you can't change. There's things we're going through in my family right now we can't reverse. We can't change. There's no way to deal with that. You just have to let things run their course sometimes. And when you understand that life is going to move on with or without you, whether you stress 1,000% or 0%, things are just going to keep going, right? It doesn't matter. I think it's years ago, I had a friend that was part of a church group I was in, and he had a mental disorder. I think it was schizophrenia and something else. And I remember one time he was in my car, and, I was 19 years old at the time. I didn't know my ass from, a rock on the ground, as they say, or whatever that saying is. And he's sitting in my car, and all of a sudden he starts tweaking his face. And I look over, and I'm like, I'm ready to call the ambulance or something, because I think this guy's seizing up on me. And he starts going like that, and then he looks up, and I'm like, what the hell? And he does this about 5 times, and I'm like, dude, are you good? Do we need to go to the hospital? He's like, hey, man, I'm just changing the light for you. You want a green light so we can get there on time. And this guy was completely convinced in his mind that he could control the green light so that we could go where we want to go. And I looked at him, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that light's going to turn green whether you get all contorted and freak me out or not. It's got to turn green at some point. But he was convinced. Every light we got to, he's like, see? Look, there's proof. It changed. If I didn't do what I had to do, the light wouldn't have changed. And that is the crux of OCD and alcoholism. We think that these things that we do are changing the course of life. Life's going to go on. The earth is going to keep going around the sun. It's going to keep doing it. Doesn't matter what I do. But at any rate, that's my little excitement for today. Let's go ahead and take some questions. I think we got one from Megan. If you want to take that one, Terry.
Which one? Family triggers?
Yeah.
Yeah, family triggers are huge red flags in my recovery. Absolutely. That can definitely be the case. It wasn't so much the case with me because my family lives 900 miles away from me, so it was a little bit easier to not. But I do understand that. I hear that a lot. It's a difficult thing. But what Marcus was just talking about is control. What do you have control over? I mean, one thing I've learned in sobriety is I do not have control over people, places, and things. So that means I have very little control over things. I have control of what I'm going to do, how I'm going to respond, and how I'm going to react. And that's what I have to keep in mind. And I can make suggestions for people. I can't force them to do what I want. I can't force anybody to do what I want or think what I think or anything like that. And once I'm able to let go of that, those triggers aren't nearly as bad as they used to be. And that's kind of a freeing feeling. So that's the best thing that I think you can do is just try to let go of those family issues that are dealing with you. If they're hurting you directly, then obviously you need to respond in a positive way. But if there's something that you can't control, then maybe just getting out of the situation or stepping back. Another important tool in these situations, especially the direct conflict situations that are happening right now, is stepping back and pausing, and so that you don't react in a negative way and just make the problem worse. So that's kind of the way I've looked at all those issues. Whenever I have a problem with somebody, stepping back, that's a great way to do it. And then I can think about it. I can decide if I want this person in my life anymore, or maybe just take a break, something like that.
Yeah. And I think it's important too. Linda asked if it was a real story, the story about the guy changing the lights. All the stories I tell you are true, even though they're sometimes outlandish, and you would be like, hey, wait a minute, your grandma was really married 16 times? It is true. I mean, I don't know if you can look it up or not, but I think one of the things to realize in that story and with family and everything like that is to understand what we don't know. We don't know what's going on in the mind of our family. We get all excited because, they offended me or they have this or whatever. When in actuality, I mean, yes, things can offend you. Yes, people can say things that can bother you, but it's only to the point of you allowing it, right? Now, there are some extreme circumstances. If a guy comes around the corner and scares the tar out of me in the middle of the night in a dark alley, yes, he did cause me to be afraid. All right. Now, if I went and worked out and was the toughest Arnold Schwarzenegger guy in the world, then a guy jumps out in the thing and I'm like, go away. And, I'm not afraid. So I can prepare in some places, but in some places we have to understand that is what they're dealing with. And I don't know what they're dealing with. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in their mind. The best thing we can do is pause and listen and get our ego out of the way. Because all it is a fighting of egos. That's all our world, like everything you trace in our world that's bad is a fighting of the ego. There's not enough of this for both of us. There's not enough room in the town for the two of us cowboys, you know? And it's like we pretend we're all civilized and everything, but really when you get down to it, it's the fighting of the egos. I want this. You can't have this. I need this. You need to respect this. This is how things need to be. And it's our illusion of how things need to be and us trying to fit everyone into our little puzzle pieces of the way we think life should look. This is my puzzle, and Terry, you know, you're nice, or you're rude, or you're mean, or you're happy. I'm going to put you in this place where I think you go because I'm the god of my world and I'm going to control it. Well, one of the things I had to learn in sobriety, especially dealing with family, because I had plenty of that to deal with in early sobriety, was the fact that I don't know if there's a God. I don't know who God is, he, she, it, whatever. But I do know that I'm not God. I had to learn this in sobriety because I thought I was God. And I tried to put all you people in the little puzzle pieces, and this is where you fit, and this is where you fit, and this is my tidy little box of life. But you know what? Life's jagged and wiggly and crooked. It doesn't fit into your boxes, right? You look at it, and it's like you look at the United States of America on a map, and it's all woo, wiggly, 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 wiggly. But then some guy came along and is like, there's Nevada. That's a big box. There's Nevada right there. Nevada doesn't exist. Someone came in and said, this is what we want our puzzle to look like. And then they got to California and were like, we'll make a line here, but on the coast it's kind of like, and it's like, wait a minute. You made these lines and the same thing is happening in your life. You go to your family and you're like, this is the nice guy. This is the uncle we don't talk to. This is the guy. And you have all these boxes, but they don't exist. But when we take our ego out and we're like, hey, life is just what it is, and this guy's got his issues, and they got their issues, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you're talking about the ego, and you know, it's an interesting observation I've had in sobriety and having some years of sobriety, and that's that. When I got sober, I started to kind of work on myself, work on my reactions to life, work on my ego. For me to get sober, my ego had to get smashed. I mean, I had a lot of self-will. I had a huge ego. I thought I could control things. And I learned I couldn't. And I had to go down to the very bottom of that ego spectrum, realizing that I was nothing. And I'm just one person out of, as Marcus always says, 8 billion. But that was huge. And, you know, other people that have not gotten sober, they kind of live life more towards the middle. I was at the extreme of the high ego and the extreme self-will. They're kind of in the middle, maybe a little above, maybe a little below, whatever. But when I learned that I had to smash that ego, I had to live more in humility, that kind of brought me back down to that even level. But the other people, maybe they don't have the tools to deal with life that I've learned. That might be one of the reasons why they tend to react to situations. Maybe they've become successful and they have a huge ego as well, but they haven't had many of the challenges, or maybe they have, and that's inflated their ego more. If you guys kind of know what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is that I've developed a lot of tools in sobriety on how to deal with life, and a lot of other people haven't. And you know, there's many people that have many more tools than I do, and I'm definitely not the guru of the even ego in anything like that. But what I've learned is that, you know, other people are sick too, is what it is, and they're just different levels of it. And some people don't have the tools to deal with life, so I may have conflict with them, and I might have to deal with those situations. And like I said, sometimes just stepping back and trying to live with tolerance of others tends to help a lot too. So that's kind of an observation I made.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because the minute we think we are like all set up with our ego comes in and is like, hey, you got this ego thing nailed down, man. You should be proud of that. you know? When in actuality, does it matter? Does it really matter? It's like, will the humblest person please stand up? You know? And it's kind of interesting because it's like, does it really matter? Can't we just be? There was someone I was listening to. My brother and I got to talking. We haven't talked in a while, and we always pass back and forth different philosophers and religious people and all kinds of stuff that we listen to or read. And I started listening to this guy I listened to years ago, and he was talking about how there's a part in the Bible that a lot of people get wrong when, the whole don't worry part. Don't worry, be happy. And it says, don't take thought for tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't fret about tomorrow. And a lot of us in Western civilization, we look at that as like, don't freak out. Don't worry, right? It's going to be handled. But actually what he's talking about, if you read it, he says, take no thought, which is an interesting way to say that. Like if Terry comes up to me and he's like, hey man, I got this thing going on in my life. And I'm like, hey, take no thought. He'd be like, I wasn't taking a thought. I was asking your input. I mean, what the heck, He's gonna be like, "What are you speaking? You're speaking funny. You might want to go sit with that guy changing the lights and talk to him for a little bit, or the lady talking to the blades of grass." But really, what that means is like, don't take that thought. The thoughts are gonna go by. Which ones I take is up to me. What am I gonna take? Am I gonna take that thought? Am I gonna chew on that? Am I gonna ruminate on it, or am I just gonna let it be? Because we don't have to take every thought. Every thought that pops in our head, we don't need to take it. Just let it go. And I think that's an interesting way to look at it, because there's an activity in don't worry. Don't you worry. That's an activity. Whereas taking no thought is passive. Just not going to take a thought. Just going to be. And there's a difference there, because the ego wants to fight. That's why, like, you go to the bar and people are liquored up and they all want to fight, right? Or some of them do. Some of them want to laugh at me. I was pretty funny, funny looking. I wear banana shirts, so, if that's not funny, who knows? But, that's why, because the ego gets involved and we start to worry about this stuff, and we're doing everything active and proactive, and Western culture is all about doing and accomplishing and working, whereas we're not really meant for that. There's a Bible thing that says, hey, after he worked, he rested. There is a time you need to rest. There is a time you need to reflect, or lack of reflect. There's a time when you can sit and not think. Practice taking no thoughts at all and just be. And I think that's what really quenches the ego, because it's like, hey, if I'm not thinking about myself, that's a good thing sometimes, because I spend a hell of a lot of time thinking about myself.
Me too. Just not too bad. I'm about 97% of the time thinking about myself. But, yeah. Wow, you must have hung out in some pretty wild bars there. Everybody wants to fight.
I think I made him want to fight. I was like, yeah.
Or maybe it was you, yeah?
Yeah, okay. Maybe I had a kick my butt sign on the back of my...
I think back in my 20s, I hung out in a hippie bar. Nobody wanted to fight in a hippie bar. Peace, love, and happiness, right?
Yeah, well, once you get, like, you're in the Bay Area, in the thick of it, where there are still hippies. Up in Vacaville, it was like, no, it's a little bit different. But people in Vacaville are nice, too.
Anyways, let me take Laurel's. Hi, guys. I'm 112 days sober, but should have been 113. My dog passed away 2 weeks ago, and I stayed sober. Getting her ashes on Tuesday was unbearable, and I drank. I don't think I should reset. Yeah, and I saw your Facebook posts, and you saw my response. And I'm so sorry for the loss. It's always hard to lose your fur baby, and I understand your little baby was really young too. It's just horrible. And anytime there's loss, it's horrible. And as you know, I've lost a couple dogs in sobriety, and it's tough. It's tough. And this last year, I lost a dog, my sponsor, my dad, and I've been able to get through it. And just for me, drinking never really it never was a thought, because I just it's hard to work through those feelings. It's a difficult thing, but it working through them and really concentrating and thinking about what I'm grateful for that the dogs gave to me in my life, my dad gave to me, my sponsor gave to me, really focusing on what they gave to me in my life and the gratitude that I have for what I received is that's allowed me to get through it and really just it's painful. There's tears, absolutely, and I just have to let them flow. And it's not easy, but understanding that it's a process and that you're going to get through it, that's what's helped me a lot. But what you're saying right now is that you drank, or maybe you drank last night or something, and I've been following you because you keep posting how many days you've been sober, and congratulations on what you had. That's not lost, and you can start where you are today, right now, and you say you don't think you should reset. I'm kind of taking that as you're not ready to stop again, but when you are, stop. And you can start where you are and keep going, get sober. And it's all right. Starting over is no big deal. Just although continuing to drink can be dangerous, so you know that, and you know what it did to you before, but you can do this. And I tell you, been much easier. I've had loss when I was drinking too, and it lasted much longer. It was much more painful, although I just drank it away. But I thought drinking the feelings away would stop them, and it didn't. It pushed them down the road, and I had lots of guilt because I was drinking and wasn't able to be there at the services or anything like that because alcohol was more important. And it's definitely much easier for me to deal with the loss in sobriety. So good luck, and stay here and keep posting on Facebook. I'd love to see your comments there. And for any of you that aren't on our Facebook group, join that. Check it out. You can talk to us. It's a private group, so I mean the people in the group are going to see what you're posting. But there's lots of good information. Lots of people will give you advice from their experience as to maybe a situation you had, and you can take it or leave it. But there's I check in on it daily, and we can all share our road to sobriety.
Absolutely. Let's see. A lot of questions coming in, or comments.
Well, MJA said when you're in the bottle, it's the last thing you want to do is deal with your ego. The drinker's ego is huge. I tell you, when I was drinking, I don't think I thought about anything about feelings and anything deep like that. Drinking was just to push it down. And yeah, last thing I wanted to deal with was ego, and I certainly wasn't going to when I was drinking. I wasn't going to deal with anything. In fact, I just went back down into that little cocoon of my home and just hid from everything. That's what I did.
I think it's interesting too because the perspectives are different with different people. For me, it was the opposite. For me, I drank and I turned into Dr. Freud, and I had to deal with all my issues and made up issues, even if I didn't have enough issues for the day. And drinking really made me wallow and prolong things and not deal with them, right? So in essence, like I thought I was dealing with it. It's like, oh, I'm crying about this and I'm, whatever. But I was kicking the can down the road because I really couldn't get a new perspective if I was drunk because it was always ego-based. It was always, this happened to me. These people were taken from me. I can't believe all the stuff that happened to me. And I couldn't see how selfish I was in just focusing on how all of life affects me as if the whole world spins for Marcus. And it doesn't. Like, I don't think I could even make the world slow down one fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a mile an hour. Can't do it because it doesn't revolve around me, and it doesn't have much to do with me. And now in sobriety, I look at things a lot different. Like right now, my dad is diagnosed with cancer, and it's progressively getting worse. And, we have to accept that unless there's some miraculous healing, it doesn't look good. And I used to look at it as, this person's taken from me. Oh, how does this happen to me? Now I reflect on all the good things. Like, hey, these are some good things. This person was part of my life. I can look at bad, I can look at good, but I choose to look at the good things, and to thank the universe for giving me this person. And it's a whole different ball game, you know. I could tell you that if these kind of things happened 7 years ago when I was drinking, I'd be at the bar a blubbering mess. I'd be at home a blubbering mess. I would never deal with it. Right? Nothing ever got dealt with. I went to therapists, I talked to people, and nothing got dealt with because the alcoholic mind was so focused on itself, nothing else could get in. I was so smart in my own mind. I had everything figured out in my own mind, and it wasn't working. Right? And I remember hearing something years ago where someone was like, "Hey, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?" And I'd like to replace the word happy with content, because,
Yeah.
you know, as my wife says, you don't want to be a happy ass just out there happy assing around where you're ignorant to everything. No, I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to understand what's going on, and I want to see injustice, and I want to see good things, and I want to understand the world the way it is. And I think sobriety allows us to do that. And there is good, and there is bad, and there is sad, and there is, you know, content, and there is happy, and there's good. And, you know, it's like that old Beatles song, or whoever sang the song, "To Everything Turn, Turn." There's a season, and there are
What's the
seasons.
Beatles?
It wasn't the Beatles. Who was it? It was someone.
I don't.
Turn, turn. There's
Yeah,
a
I know.
I don't want to sing too much of it because, you know, the copyright police will come after us.
Then
But
I won't Google it.
there you go, yeah. But I think when you understand that, life is just so much better. Like Laurel says, I love being sober. Life is so much better sober. It's the Birds. Thank you, Megan. Good. I always thought it was the Beatles. I get like half of the stuff wrong. So, you know, you might want to check up on me from time to time. My brain, there's a lot in there and a lot falls out. So, you know,
Well, we'll get the fact checker out.
there you go. Yeah. You can fact check me when I run for public office.
That's it. Yes. So, congratulations on those of you that are putting in how much sobriety you got. What do we got here? I'm going backwards here now. 150 days for Jordan. Awesome. And Laurel, like I said, you had 112 days. That's pretty awesome. And there's a couple in the beginning here. Let me see. Sorry
Let
if I'm
me
missing your comments. Let me know how much sobriety you got. That'd be
let me
wonderful.
take B and D real quick while you find another one.
Yeah.
He says, I can't sleep if I get sober for a couple of days. So frustrating. Any advice? Don't fight it.
Yep.
Just be okay. Like, your body's going to sleep eventually anyway, unless you're, you know, having 20 pots of coffee before you go to bed. But yeah, maybe lay off the coffee, lay off the stimulants, and just be like, use that time. I remember in early sobriety, it was very difficult for me to get to sleep. Sometimes it still is. And I used to fight it. I used to be like, oh my God, I got to go to sleep. I got all this stuff to do in the morning. But then I realized, like, okay, I could listen to a talk on my headphones. I can learn something, and I can relax, and eventually I'll fall asleep anyway. Like, that's the big secret, is like, okay, if you're relaxing and you're resting, it's pretty much the same, and you will fall asleep. And if you understand that, like, I always get there and I'm like, I'm not tired, I'm gonna listen to 5 hours of this talk tonight, and I make it through like 10 minutes and I fall asleep. But yeah, don't fight it. Just let it be. Your body's gonna do what it needs to do. You're in recovery mode. That's a good thing. You don't need to drink yourself to sleep, because drinking makes it so you never really sleep. Like, that's why drinkers go crazy, because they never really sleep, and it's the insomnia that makes them insane, in addition to putting alcohol on your thoughts. But yeah, you know, eventually it'll go back to normal, and you'll be okay.
Yep. Bionic Loaf has 2 years of sobriety, and thanks for the kudos. Really appreciate that. For me, sleep, yeah, that first month, and then especially that first week in going through rehab, my sleep was terrible. But it really took a couple of months for my sleep to get somewhat normal. and that's just completely natural. The body's, you stop drinking and all these nerve endings start firing off, and it's difficult to get to sleep. But what Marcus said was great advice. If I am having a difficult night of sleep, I lay there and just try to relax. I don't listen to a talk, but I sit there and lay there and not what. And the key for me to be able to get to sleep is, okay, it doesn't matter if I don't go to sleep. This is what I tell myself. It doesn't matter if I don't go to sleep. I'm just going to lay here and rest. So at least my body will be somewhat rested. And usually I end up falling asleep. But there's other tricks that I'm sure if you've had trouble sleeping, you've probably Googled it, like going to bed at the same time every night, not drinking coffee after, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. I pretty much stopped caffeine, and I drink a little bit too much in the morning, so I have to stop. And, trying to get off the computer screen hour before you go to bed, things like that. Trying maybe listening to some calm music or a talk before you go to bed. Lots of little things that can help it. But yeah, early sobriety, it's difficult because your body's starting to normalize, so different things are happening. And sleep can be a difficult thing to get. Marcus, I like the banana shirt. That's what Darla says. Oh yeah, pretty snazzy.
It is the fancy stuff,
Yeah. And Megan, you said you used to drink yourself to sleep. You did not. You drank yourself to pass out, just like me. But yes, I hear you. That's what I tried to do too. I tried to drink myself to sleep, and sure, I passed out.
Yep. It's an interesting thing. Congrats, Darla, on 107 days. Also, let's talk about our sobriety course that we've been working really hard on for you guys over the last couple years. Terry, do you want to talk about it a little bit? If I can. There we go. There it
Sure.
is. All right.
So here at Talk Sober, we have this sobriety program. That's at talksober.com. And it's what our goal there is to help you get and stay sober from alcohol. And it's a 30-day program. And, a lot of people are having trouble trying to get sober or trying to stay sober. And what we do is we really concentrate on the thinking aspect of sobriety. It's what we feel a lot of people are missing in their sobriety programs. And so we really concentrate on that, get you to start to develop a sober mindset. And really, it doesn't matter how much you drink, how often you drank, or how many times you got sober. You can get sober. And really, it's a change in your mindset. You really need to change everything you possibly can. So just a quick overview of our program is that it's based on Marcus's letters to the alcoholic, and each letter is associated with a day, so a 30-day program, 30 letters, and it's associated with a topic that's important to your thinking and your thinking towards sobriety. So when you go through the letters, you'll probably see a lot of similarities in Marcus's and my experience and what Marcus is talking about. And there's a couple of videos that go with the letter. There's exercises, there's PDFs, and you're going to learn how to deal with your alcohol problem. And after each day, there's a section to go over that's going to kind of help you get through to the next day, because those first 30 days are difficult. We start to get a lot of difficult thoughts and cravings and things like that. So you try to follow one section a day. You don't have to go one a day. You can go slower, you can go faster, whatever, but we recommend one a day to properly absorb the information. And, you go through the program multiple times. We've had people do that, and that they find that it helps them, or you can go back and check it out. And it's the one thing is our program, it doesn't require a lot of time. It does require consistent work. But I mean, any sobriety program, it's going to require consistent work on your sobriety. I have to stay consistent with my sobriety work even today, and I don't do it as much as I used to, because I've kind of learned, streamlined what I need to do each day to stay sober. But that's kind of that part of it. But remember, we're not trained addiction counselors. We're not doctors. We've based this program on our own experience and working with other people. But we feel that we have a really effective program here. We can it it's going to help you develop a really good mindset for sobriety. And there's other things on there, on just talksober.com that are free, and you can go there and check it out, and you can, one of them that's a real good tab there is should I go to rehab? And that's just kind of it's, you can read that and just, it'll give you some ideas. It's not the answer on whether you go to rehab. You're really going to need to make that decision for yourself and with your family or whatever, your loved one, to help you decide if you need to go to rehab. But there's also Am I an Alcoholic self-quiz that can help you get an idea on if you do indeed have a problem with alcohol that you're going to need help with. You can also click another button there, and that's you get a free, or not free, you get a sobriety phone call one-on-one with Marcus and I, and we can spend an hour with you and find out what's on your mind and what's going on in your life. So that's another thing that you can check out. And go to talksober.com, and also join our Facebook group. And that's all you got to do is just ask for approval, and I'll approve you, and you can come right in and start reading some of the other posts. There's lots of good stuff on there, and lots of good ideas and tricks and tools on how to stay sober. Now, we feel it's a real effective program. Obviously, we can't guarantee sobriety. The sobriety, it's our own responsibilities for our own sobriety, and that's one thing I have to always remember, is that my sobriety isn't anybody else's responsibility. I have to take the steps necessary to stay sober, and there you go. So check it out.
Awesome. Yep. And to sign up, if you want to support what we're doing on this channel and help us out, and also get all that cool stuff Terry mentioned, go to talksober.com, click on the big yellow button. It'll take you to the sign-up form. It is a secure sign-up form. And let's see, we got to log out so we can show you what it looks like here. There we go. It'll sign up like this, and it'll go through, and you just sign up here. It'll get you an instant login. You can go in there, start downloading and reading everything, and that's at talksober.com. Now, question from Jen. Jen says he's having trouble with the ethanol sprays that they're using in the current world situation we shall not name, and because it smells like alcohol. One thing I would realize is that if you have a craving, no law says that you need to bend to that craving. There's something in our current modern world that says that we should get whatever we want. We want chips flavored like pickles. They actually have those. Like, whatever. But they have these chips, and it's like you pretty much get whatever you want. But what we need to do is we need to change our way of thinking, which gets off of the ego, and say, hey, I don't have to have whatever I want whenever I want it just because I smell it. Big deal, Right now, I'd like some lunch. But, I got to curb my craving and just go ahead and be okay with that. But yeah, it will fade with time, and the more you train yourself to not give in to the cravings, the more you're going to be like, wow, yeah, that hand sanitizer stuff kind of smells nasty, and doesn't make me crave my drinks. And over time, it will start to subside.
And I know people that have years of sobriety that they can't stand the smell, and they're afraid of the alcohol smell. So the triggers are definitely, they can be there. It's just a matter of learning how to deal with them. And as Marcus says, that's great advice right there. I'm in catering. So I smell booze all the time. It doesn't bother me. But yeah, I have to be aware that, sometimes, you get that whiff of the really expensive Cabernet sitting there, and it's like, wow, that smells pretty good. Usually the hard alcohol smells, and then that ethanol smell, they don't trigger me so much. Even though that's what I drank those last few years, but not the ethanol, but the hard alcohol. But it smells good, and it can be a trigger. But I've never chosen to take that drink. A lot of times, one time I had a trigger at a baseball game, and that was because this guy, the sun hit his beer just right. It was right next to me. It looked beautiful. But you know what I did was, I'm like, oh, I'm thirsty. I need to go get a Coke. And that's what I did. And that craving went away right away. So that's, pay attention to that.
Absolutely. And Al says the letters and the course really helped him to get and stay sober. And I think you said you were at 10 months now or something. I think you might be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one, we had a one-on-one call with him as well.
Yes.
Which was pretty cool. Strictly Smart says the channel's really helping him with his early sobriety and was kind of like his first step, which is good. You guys can do this. The course, I think, will really help you out. Of course, if you don't have the means to get it, there's lots of cool free videos and everything like that, and our Facebook group as well. But I think that really will help you. And I guarantee you're probably spending more than that on alcohol anyway. So, if anything, it'll cut down on your alcohol expenditures. But I think it's really important to look at what it is. And yeah, Al's been sober 10 months, and I think we talked to him about 10 months ago. I think that was around the time we had that call with him.
Yeah. And Laurel, you mentioned what a lot of people mentioned, and you said, I never liked the taste, only drank to mask any pain. Somebody else mentioned the same thing. I think it's been mentioned a couple times today, is just masking the pain. I tell you, for me, that was not the case as much. Sure, my reasons for drinking, I still don't know the exact reason, but my reasons were more just I liked the feeling. And sure, I drank to mask pain, but I drank to celebrate. I drank for any reason. Any reason was why. I know, Marcus, you were a little bit more of a push down the feelings guy for your drinking, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was doing a good thing, pushing my feelings down, pushing them aside. I still struggle with that today, where I'm like, it does seem a little bit easier to not deal with stuff than it does to deal with things, right? I mean, why do today what you could put off till tomorrow? And I would drink, and it would just prolong everything and make everything worse. And I didn't realize that, hey, this isn't working. What I think is happening isn't happening, because I would drink to mask the feelings. Drinking would make the feelings more heightened and more ego-based. I wouldn't actually deal with anything, and then I'd wake up the next day with a hangover, feeling terrible, having to drink again, and not having dealt with anything. When what I found out is, hey, if I just sit with this and be like, hey, it's just a feeling, it's okay. I think I'll be okay. It actually works itself out. Life has a funny way of just working itself out, and issues have a way of working themselves out. And, I think the key is really getting a new perspective. There's a fantastic book in recovery called A New Pair of Glasses. It's very AA slanted, but I think, if that's not your cup of tea, it's still a great book. But he talks about getting a new perspective on everything.
Jeanette says, I'm sober 3 years in 20-ish days. Ran out of close sober alcoholic friends. They relapsed permanently. Is it bad I have so many never drinker friends and constantly slipping away from my alcoholic ties? I guess that's a question. But I think just staying social, and it's important for me at least, it's important that I do have sobriety ties. But yeah, that's what happens. I've lost a lot of friends to relapse, and some have passed away. And that's the unfortunate reality of this disease, is that can happen. I stayed tied in with, I do hang out with a lot of sober alcoholics, but they're not the only people I hang out with. I'm in a cycling group, and we cycle every weekend, and we always go and have lunch afterwards, and they all have a beer or two. I can't have a beer or two. I have to have 12 or 20. So I have a soda. Actually, a couple of them just have sodas too, but some of them have beers. And I think that's a perfectly healthy relationship with those guys. And just because I know I can handle going out, I didn't risk any of that in the beginning. But you have 3 years, so maybe you're in the situation as well where you understand what you can do and what you can't do. But it's always good, I think, to at least have a relationship with some other sober alcoholics. One thing I hear a lot of people that have come back after relapsing is they've kind of pushed away. They got busy. Their life got busy. Things got successful. And they started living life. And all of a sudden they were drinking because they had lost all of their ties with other sober alcoholics. So, it's really you and what you can do. But I know stuck in my own head, if I didn't have other people in my life, I don't know where I'd be right now. Maybe I'd still be sober, maybe not. I don't know. It's a tough one.
David says, 5 months sober, I'm dealing with resentments, fear, and anxiety. David, I think going through our course would probably give you a good perspective on that. Over at talksober.com, click the big yellow button. But I do want to address it here as well. I just think, a lot of people, if you're dealing with resentments, fear, and anxiety, the course goes through that in great detail. But yeah, I think when dealing with resentments, the key is to realize that a resentment is just a thought, something that you think is like an injustice, or something you think is not fair, which goes back to the ego thinking. And that's not to say, be a doormat for everyone. That's to say, put it in perspective and understand what that other person is dealing with and what that resentment is about. And I think a new perspective on it really helps. And then with fear and anxiety, watch what you eat, watch what you do, realize that alcohol played a big part in anxiety, and, eventually it will get back to normal. You might always have anxiety. I kind of always do sometimes. But realizing that it's not really real, that it's just a body reaction, and that it's programmed into you, I think really helps, because then it's like, okay, it's just running a program. That's what it's doing. It'll pass. I think that really helps. What do you think about that, resentments and fear and anxiety, Terry?
Really what you said, but I really try to sit back, look at the resentment, find out exactly what I'm angry about this person, how they wronged me or whatever, whatever my resentment is towards them, and then look at my part in it. And, sometimes a resentment, the only part I had in it was I was there. And so then it becomes a little bit more difficult to let go of that resentment. But, sometimes it's just time that's going to help. And kind of trying to sort of see their perspective. I had a particular person that I was angry with for quite a while, and I got sober, and I worked the steps of AA, and there's a step 4 that directly focuses on resentments, and step 5 and all that, and I worked it. I still had that resentment for a couple of years. And then finally I saw this person in person. I wasn't there. It was just not a situation where I could see this person. And I didn't know what I was going to do when I saw him. But, after when I saw him and realized, this person isn't really a bad person. It was seeing him in person, shaking his hand, talking to him, not even talking about the resentment, just realizing, oh yeah, there is that guy in there that was my friend, and he's still an okay guy. Made a mistake, just like I've made. There's people that have or had resentments against me for particular things, and I'd like to think that I'm a pretty nice guy, but I've made mistakes, absolutely. And trying to look at it from that perspective, understanding that I'm not pure, definitely not pure. These things happen, and that's kind of a way that I've been able to let go of a lot of them.
Good advice. All right, guys, I think we're nearing the end of today's talk. Again, if you guys do want to support the channel and help out what we're doing and get all kinds of tools to get and stay sober, hop over to talksober.com, click that big yellow button, fill out the form. You can cancel whenever you want. If you have any questions or anything, we're there for you. All kinds of good stuff in there. If you do want to get a private call just with me and Terry, you can click that button and then we'll schedule that with you. And everything like that. But I think Yeah, we've had a lot of good questions today. Any last minute thoughts there, Terry?
Uh, my mind just blanked because I was reading. Let me take Jeanette's real quick because that's what I was reading. Your
Sure.
question is then, is it okay to just doing online sober alcoholic friends? A lot of people have gotten sober and stayed sober through all the Zoom meetings and stuff like that online this past year because we've all been in this shutdown. And it can be done. I mean, a person can get sober with many different methods of sobriety. There isn't just one way to get sober. But what I suggest is just doing everything you possibly can to stay sober or get sober. I tried everything I could that was available at the time when I got sober, and I was able to hone it down to what I felt was working for me. The most important thing is whatever you're going to do is going to help you to not take that first drink. And it really comes down to that simplicity is not taking that first drink. And that's what it all comes down to. We can overthink this really easily. And for me, it's not taking that drink no matter what. So I make sobriety my top priority. And that's what tends to work for me. So there you go.
Absolutely. Dedicated says, what if it's a bad person? Well, there are some bad people.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from them if I can. You
Yeah.
know, if there's someone that consistently hurts others or hurts me or is abusive or whatever, just stay away from them. Like, you have no obligation to stay with those people. And I think our society has too much obligation. Oh, well, that's your husband. And, if they're abusive, if it's dangerous, get out of there. Well, that's my brother. Well, if they're abusive, it doesn't mean you have to hate them.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to, banish them from society. Just say, hey, I am choosing not to be this way. And there's an example of that in my life where there's a close family member who is married to another family member, or I guess through marriage, and I choose not to talk to that person. And I got to be able to accept, okay, well, that means I probably won't see the other person that much. So be it. I have to do what I need to do to protect myself from people who I deem are not good people.
Yeah.
That's my choice. And once you realize that life is all about choices, it's my choice. I'm choosing to stay sober. I'm choosing to limit my connection with toxic people. I'm choosing to do this. I'm choosing to do that. Then it's all a choice, right? And you can make that choice. And every choice comes with the repercussions of it. And what am I willing to live with? Is it harder to deal with the repercussions of my family saying, oh, you should just suck it up and talk to that person? Or is it harder to deal with the person? Well, for me, it's harder to deal with the person because it's like, hey, if you're not going to clean up your act and you're not going to do this stuff, then c'est la vie, and you just do it in a cool way that's like, hey, you choose to be this way, therefore I choose not to be around you.
Right.
Plain and simple.
What's going to happen if I retaliate to somebody that I have a resentment against? I mean, think it through. If you're able to step back and pause, get out of that situation, get out of their life for a little bit and think about it instead of reacting or retaliating. If I retaliate, that's just going to make it worse. There is no way it's going to get better. Retaliating to somebody is going to bring out the negative in them. But just stepping away, if that's what you have to do, at least you're just making that separation. And if you respond with maybe some more tolerance and love, for lack of better words that I can't come up with right now, but if you respond that way, that may turn the whole situation around, and you may develop or redevelop your friendship. So yeah, just try to keep the negative emotions out. It's hard sometimes. Absolutely. So, anyways. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's about it for today. Go over to talksober.com, support the channel. We want to make this a big thing. We want to reach a lot more people. And not only do you get access to the recovery class, but you also feel good because you're going to be helping out what we're doing and help us further the message and help Terry keep smiling. or whatever. That was a joke, but we're always smiling because we're sober, and that's a good thing.
That's right.
So, yes, we will see you guys next week. Have a good one. Stay sober. Don't drink even if your ass falls off. And we'll see you next time. As soon as I can find the button that stops the stream. Have a good one.